You are listening to the program You Are Loved, and we are going into our 40th episode. Last week we spoke about, before I go to last week's episode, let me introduce our host, Marana Zair Ahmed Ragi. Marana, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته. And we also say Assalamu alaikum to all our listeners and viewers, Radio Islam, Radio Al Ansar, the Ummahat platform. We hope you had enjoyed the programs thus far. We are now coming towards the end, inshallah.
Marana, we were discussing last week, we did tarnishing the reputation of Islam, that the narcissists are those who portray as problematic Muslims. They make Islam a violent and harsh religion. We also dealt with how to live with a narcissist, and for some, divorcing or leaving a narcissistic husband or wife isn't an option that they can easily take. And we mentioned that, how to live with them, how to live with minimal damage. It's a deep spiritual problem. We also mentioned that only if Allah guides the narcissist will he or she change for the better. And if you anticipate split between the two, then we did the steps that the person should take, appoint a mediator from both sides, a neutral person who is trusted and wise. Also, let us try to find common grounds. You should never address the weak points of each other. The mediator also should be a good observation skills and read body languages, so to pick up the signs of emotional abuse, which are not easy to pick up normally. We also discussed if a suitable mediator is not found, then professional ulama and counselors should be contacted. And if no solution is found, then the mediator can help them through a peaceful divorce. And some narcissists will also agree to visit. We discussed this, and today we start with the topic how we can provide some tips that will help a person live with a narcissist.
Yes, Ma'ana. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Jazakumullah for the recap that you had brought up. Alhamdulillah. So, as you said, in our last discussion, we spoke of going to a mediator and be sure that you go to a right mediator. And today we continue with this. And as we said, we are now discussing the healing journey. And in this, some tips that can be applied either to parents. We know that right in the beginning, there were some people that spoke about how do we interact and speak to people that have parents that have these narcissistic disorderly traits. So tips that can be applied to parents, also to partners, and even sometimes children. And anyone else whom you know is perhaps someone who has narcissistic traits. First and most importantly, pray to Allah for protection against the harmful actions, intentions, and plans of a narcissist. This is an extremely important part, and many a times we become indifferent to the power of dua and prayers. So pray to Allah Ta'ala for the protection against harmful actions, harmful intentions, harmful approaches, harmful plans of a narcissist. Pray to Allah Ta'ala firstly. Now remember, we are in this relationship and we are doing what we are required to do, or what we are advising one to do, is because we want to maintain this relationship. So we should pray to Allah Ta'ala to help the narcissist heal from their disorder. However, we need to keep in mind that we should not be judgmental by labeling anyone and everyone to be a narcissist. We had discussed this in detail. But if you see anyone, observe anyone that has certain personality disorders, you need to make dua to Allah Ta'ala to help the person heal from their disorder. Never underestimate the power of dua. And because the person who has this disorder is in a very low spiritual state, They are unable to effectively pray for themselves. So asking Allah Ta'ala to guide and help them will be very, very beneficial for both you and them. Now, everyone, no matter how many personality disorders he has or she has, everyone has a good side to them. And if we focus on the good qualities, their narcissistic traits will become less of a problem. Feed their ego and make them feel good about themselves. So identify the good that people have and then feed their ego, that means their good traits, and make them feel good about themselves. Again, I am emphasizing that we are doing this because we are now in this relationship. We have children, we have commitments, and we want to remedy our situation. So feed the ego, make them feel good about themselves. This will keep them in a good mood, which makes life with them, inshallah, will make life with them more bearable. Also, important is ignore and overlook their faults and ignore and overlook their issues to maintain peace, especially when they get defensive about their bad habits. Be willing to always take the blame. Again, I am emphasizing here that we are advising these tips, and we've mentioned that these are tips that we are mentioning or identifying is because we want to remain in this relationship. We want to maintain this relationship. We want to endure in this relationship. So ignore, overlook their faults and issues. And the primary reason for doing this is to maintain the peace, especially when they become defensive about their bad habits. Be willing to take the blame. Be willing to take the blame. Forgive, apologize, even if you are not in the wrong. Be willing to take blame, be willing to forgive, be willing to apologize, even when you are not in the wrong. Together with this, remember we're speaking of tips of how to live with a person who has these types of disorders. Learn more about narcissists and their behavior. Learn more about their manipulation tactics so that you are mentally prepared for them, and learn how to subtly play their games, subhanallah, without getting harmed in the process. Remember, you are in this relationship. You want to maintain this relationship. You have children in this relationship. You want to make this relationship better. So learn their behavior, learn about the manipulation tactics so that you are mentally prepared for them, and learn how to subtly play their games without getting harmed in the process. What is extremely important in this is do not confront them and let them know that you know that they are narcissists. So in this relationship, don't ever mention that you are a narcissist. And we've mentioned this previously, and we've said that with great emphasis. Do not become judgmental. Don't confront such people and let them know that you know that they are narcissists. It will highly offend them, and then find ways to punish you for labeling them as such. What's important, yes, however, find a trusted counselor, find a trusted friend to talk to when needed. So when you are in this toxic relationship, Learn how to apologize, learn how to forgive, learn not to, tell your partner or your parent or your children that you are a narcissist. Learn to forgive, learn to overlook. Together with that, you need to help yourself. So find someone that you can trust to talk to when needed. Living with and tolerating a narcissist can trigger many mental health issues. Now, we know that yesterday and in this week they talked about in the world about the mental health day. So it's just so coincidental that our discussion is also on these things today. So living with and tolerating a narcissist can trigger extremely many mental health issues, such as anxiety, fear, anger, resentment. And so it's important, extremely important, that you look after yourself to stay focused and sane. So you need to learn how to look after yourself in this. So remember, these tips we are talking about is to look after yourself. Now, speaking with wise people, speaking with professionals will help you to deal with the narcissist and advise you on the various decisions you need to make. Now, many may find what we are saying about speaking to professionals as something that is now, I don't know, in today's time, there are many people who look at this as a modernist trait. Unfortunately, when we talk about the seerah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, there is an aspect that we talk of fiqh surah, to draw the lessons from the seerah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Subhanallah, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was the best of counselors. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was the best of therapists. And we note in the seerah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam that among the Sahaba, when they encountered issues of this type of, living with people that have some traits, we find that the Sahaba, male and female, partners used to come to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and used to ask Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam for assistance of how to deal with these issues. And there could never have been a better counselor, a better therapist than Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And if you look at the advices that Rasulullah had given, subhanallah, we find that today, if we use those answers and approaches of Rasulullah, they themselves can be the best of approaches. So it will help you deal with the narcissist and advise you on the various decisions you need to make. Speaking with wise people, speaking with professionals will help you deal with the narcissist, and they will advise you on the various decisions you will need to make. An extremely, extremely important advice that I could share with you, that when you are in this relationship, in this toxic relationship, don't ever unload your problems onto your children. Don't ever unload your problems onto your children. And don't ever treat your children like your counselors. Don't ever treat your children as your therapists. This is so, so crucial, because if you do so, it will make your children codependent. It will burden them with worries that they should not be carrying. The negative thoughts and feelings within yourselves and about your partner should never be shared with your children. So if you have a negative thought about your partner, don't ever share those negative thoughts with your children. Having said that, another very, very extremely important tip: make sincere effort to strengthen your connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to protect your mental, your spiritual health. Now, if you see right in the beginning, when we commenced with this program, unfortunately, there were many that had, comments, remarks about this program, and they, linked it to people that are modernists, unfortunately, because they did not have the concept of what we are going to talk about. And now that we are talking about the tips and the remedies, you realize that the purpose of this is to better our relationships with people, and it had nothing, absolutely nothing about, modernism and all of that, but rather to live with the realities that people are experiencing. So, coming back, make sincere effort to strengthen your connection with Allah Ta'ala so that you protect your mental and spiritual health. Your happiness comes from within and not the narcissist. Your personal happiness comes from within you. It does not come by or from your partner, your parent, your children, your employer, your companions, but your happiness comes from within and not the narcissist. So seek solace, seek comfort in your prayers, in your spiritual connection with Allah Ta'ala, and in believing that Allah Ta'ala will take care of you. Especially if you are in a vulnerable situation where you feel stuck. So strengthening your connection with Allah Ta'ala, making dua, being punctual with your salah, being engaged with the dhikr of Allah Ta'ala, and also the recital of the Quran Kareem with understanding, reflection, implementing the messages of the Quran Kareem is an extremely beneficial way of strengthening your connection with Allah Ta'ala, especially if you are in a toxic relationship. Having said that, there is something else that I want to bring about. And again, I'm saying that there may be people that may have an issue with what I'm saying. So book regular and, within the confines of the Sharia, and I'm emphasizing this part, book regular therapy treatments. It could even be some spa treatments, massages. Book these type of treatments to relax and make the efforts to do things that make you happy, such as some, just some fun activities, reading, get involved in some hobbies, get involved in some exercise to recharge and avoid falling into depression. Because if you focus on all the toxicity that you are encountering with, and you do not make an effort to strengthen your connection with Allah Ta'ala, together with the strengthening of your connection with Allah Ta'ala, there is something that you need to do for yourself, and getting involved in some good activities, exercise, some good hobbies. This in itself will prevent you from getting and falling into depression. Together with this, get your children involved in activities with you, both religious activities and physical activities. Religious activities is helping someone that is in need, joint ibadah, join ta'aleem, and some other physical activities to protect your children's mental health so they can also have regular breaks from any negativity at home. Remember that toxicity and the negative impact of living in an environment of abuse, of arguments, of fights can have a lasting effect on the development of yourself and your children. Also, extremely important, teach children from a very young age the importance of spirituality and the importance of connection with Allah Ta'ala so they can find comfort in their prayers as well. Now, not all these tips will be easy to follow, accepted. Not all these tips that we've mentioned would be easy to follow, especially for those who hate to apologize when they didn't do anything wrong. Remember, we spoke of learning to apologize. Now you did not do anything wrong, and you would find it extremely difficult and inappropriate to apologize when you did not do anything wrong. So, you would hate to apologize when you did not do anything wrong. But these things are important for people who feel they have no other choice but to maintain a peaceful relationship with a narcissist. Remember, the objective of what we are talking of now, these tips, are for those who wish to maintain their relationship because you have no other choice. And if you have no other choice, the approach of apologizing, even if you did not do anything wrong, would be one of the best ways of remaining in that relationship. So if you have no other choice but to maintain peaceful relationships with the narcissist, now in the worst case scenario, narcissists will display an increase in abusive behavior when they see that their partners are getting on with life. Now, if you have done all these that we are suggesting, if you have engaged in all these tips that we have mentioned, your partner or the person with whom you are interacting will observe that you are carrying on with life. You are not being bothered by their abuse. So in this would be an extremely worst case scenario when narcissists will display an increase in abusive behavior when they see their partners are getting on with life and aren't bothered much by what they do. And this is when serious action will need to be taken to exit the situation. Remember, you are in this situation, you followed the tips that we are mentioning, your partner or the narcissist in your life would see that you are continuing with life and you are not bothered. This will trigger them to become even more difficult in their relationship. And this is when serious action will need to be taken to exit such a situation. Now, domestic violence is often reported in such cases where women are caught trying to leave or are found seeking marital advice from others who encourage them to leave. This is another scenario that when the wife seeks help from professionals and the partner realizes that you are now seeking advice on divorce or on leaving this toxic relationship, sometimes the result of that could be domestic violence. When you are found seeking marital advice from others who encourage you to leave, if a woman's life and children are in danger, and many a times it is in danger, then it's not advised to encourage someone to leave and apply for a divorce until you are in a safe place to do so. This again is another extremely important tip, that you are wanting a separation, you're wanting advice on the separation, then do not remain in the same environment. Move away from that environment. Because if you remain in the environment, especially when knowing that you have been going through this abuse, then when the eventual situation is reached such that you have no other choice but to seek a separation, then move out of that environment, be away from that home, be in a safe place before seeking the application of divorce, because you would save yourself from further abuse and even sometimes physical abuse. If a woman's life and children are in danger, then it's not advised to encourage her to leave and apply for a divorce until she is in a safe place to do so. Many women need to seek refuge with their family, with their friends, or wherever they feel safe and protected before applying for a divorce or even khula. A khula, and inshallah, after we complete this program, I think it will be important, Maulana, to have a discussion on the Islamic concept of marriage, divorce, fasakh, annulment, and khula. So a khula should be pursued if an abusive husband does not change his ways and refuses to grant his wife a divorce on the grounds that she's unable to stay with him, feel safe with him, and fulfill his marital rights. So remember, you as a wife should only pursue if an abusive husband does not change his ways, should only pursue divorce, should only pursue annulment, should only pursue the concept of khula when your husband does not want to change his ways and refuses to grant his wife a divorce on the grounds that she is unable to stay with him, or when she is not feeling safe with him and fulfill his marital rights. And we spoke about one of the objectives of marriage. If you can't leave the marriage, then the previous 11 tips that we've mentioned can be implemented. If you cannot leave a marriage, then the tips that we have mentioned should be implemented to try and diffuse the issues. And if they are effective and the narcissists become more bearable to live with them, inshallah, then the situation would be able to be managed and maintained with some professional help and support from friends, from family members, and from professional counselors, professional therapists. And these professional counselors and therapists could be ulama who understand the concept, could be professional therapists and counselors. And alhamdulillah, today, there are many Muslim life coaches, many Muslim qualified counselors and therapists. And alhamdulillah, the various Muslim organizations have now many therapists, counselors that can assist and help people that are in these abusive relationships. And these are some of the tips that we have mentioned in order to endure the abusive relationship. Yes, Maulana.
And then we came to that part where they, Assalamu alaikum, there's a question that has come in. Alhamdulillah, Maulana, very informative program by Maulana Zahir Ragi for the younger and older couples and children. Another one that came in, Assalamu alaikum, Jazakallah for the advice, Maulana. My advice would be educate yourself, understanding the Muslim narcissist. Maulana, how do you deal with them when they continue to manipulate your children against you, your adult children against you?
Gee, Maulana, so is that the only one?
There's one more that is coming. Excellent advice, Marana. I'm sure narcissists listening are nodding their heads, believing they are the victims, and the victims are the nas.
Okay, so Morana, if we can talk, more about this healing journey, and it might lead to the next aspect that we are going to talk about, is that healing journey, and the best and the most lasting healing journeys always start with education. It always starts with acknowledging that what we've been through and understanding how all our experiences since birth have influenced us to be who we are today. So the advice that I'm giving now, and following up from the question that someone has asked, again, coming back to this healing journey, the most best lasting healing journey would always start with education, acknowledging that what we've been through, understanding how all our experiences since birth have influenced us to be who we are today. And this is how we should deal with that toxic environment and assist our children. Now, in having this program, Morana, there was a need to do a lot of self-study. And Alhamdulillah, we had an opportunity to read a wide range of self-love and self-help books that dive into, exercises, these self-help books, into certain types of exercises, mediations, and activities we can do to move on and make ourselves feel better. However, without a true and deep understanding of Islam, subhanAllah, without a true and deep understanding of Islam, without a deep and true understanding of our traumas, without a true and deep understanding of parents and upbringing, of how to be a good parent, how to be someone that is active in the upbringing of good children, and newfound feelings of peace and happiness may not last very long, and we can find ourselves back to square one, and we can find ourselves feeling depressed, hopeless, and attracting the same negativity and toxic people into our lives. So, how does this healing journey begin? So, a healing journey does not really begin, does not really start until you receive counseling from people who also do this counseling professionally. I emphasize on this aspect of who do the healing professionally. Not anyone and everyone is necessarily a good counselor and therapist. One great misunderstanding for our community is that we generally regard every Maulana and Alim Imam as a counselor. And many a times, ulama and imams feel that they are able to do this. Remember that the challenges and the difficulties and the toxicity of people, as we can realize from the programs that we had, are very deep disorder, very deep psychological disorders. And unless you're not professionally qualified to do that, rather revert people to go to professional people. Because many a times, as ulama, as people that do not have the right approach, could cause more harm and damage. So a healing journey does not really start until you receive correct counseling from people who also do it professionally. And remember, when we talk of professionally, is not void of the Islamic approach. I've mentioned before in our program today that best of approaches and the best of therapists and the best of counselors was Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And from the seerah and the fiqh of seerah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, one can find so many beautiful advices for counsels. So you need to discover, in answer to how to deal with it, that one of the scholars had asked, you need to discover the root cause of your issues. You need to discover the root cause of your issues. I cannot stress enough on how important Islamic counseling is for most people who need to be pointed in the right direction and be saved from further self. It is liberating. It is liberating to reach an understanding about what you, your siblings, and even your parents had been through, and managed to make peace with the traumas and move on. And I repeat this, it is liberating to reach an understanding about what you went through, what you are going through, what your siblings went through and what they are going through, and even your parents had been through, and then managed to make peace with the traumas that you went through, and then move on with life. If you are able, after many internal struggles, to forgive, to accepting abuse, and also forgive others, which will help you to heal. Again, I'm saying, remember, we are saying all these not primarily with the objective of just breaking up every relationship, but rather to work towards remedying that toxic situation. And if you are able to understand why certain relationships have become toxic, to know what you have went through, to understand why you are living in this aspect, is extremely liberating. For accepting abuse and also forgive others, which will help you to heal. Understanding, subhanallah, understanding personality disorders with an emphatic state of mind will allow you to detach yourself from the guilt, from the self-blame of what happened to you. One of the greatest disadvantages of being in a toxic relationship is to continue blaming yourself for what you are going through. So, to understand the root cause of why you are going through what you have gone through is to know, and therefore I say it is liberating to know why you are in a relationship, either through your parents, because your parents might have went through some things, or your siblings, or your partner, or your employer, or your employee, to know why they are behaving in such a way, and then to be able to live with that, and then to be able to forgive them for their abuse, for their difficulties, is extremely liberating. And then, having said that, to understand that, to be able to manage that and make peace with the traumas that you have, and then move on. And if you are able to, after that, after the many internal struggles, to forgive, to accept the abuse, and also forgive others, will help you to heal. Remember, understand personality disorders with an emphatic state of mind, with a compassionate state of mind, will allow you to detach yourself from the guilt. The most important aspect is never blame yourself for being in an abusive relationship. Understanding personality disorders with an emphatic, compassionate, merciful state of mind will allow you to detach yourself from the guilt, from the self-blame of what happens to you. Understanding how people become codependents, how people become narcissists, how people are behaving as sociopaths, psychopaths, helps us to clearly see the changes that need to be made in our lives in order to avoid developing personality disorders and those who have them. So understanding why others are behaving in a particular way is liberating and will help you to safeguard yourself and protect yourself from becoming people why they are in that way. Sometimes it's the most traumatic experiences that make us stronger as Muslims, as human beings, because it teaches us how to build resilient, strong, powerful boundaries. It helps us. So again, it's the most traumatic, difficult experiences that we go through that makes us stronger as Muslims, that makes us stronger as human beings, because it teaches us how to build the boundaries around us, how to build our faith, and extremely important, how to build self-respect. Self-respect is extremely important to continue and endure a toxic relationship. Now, the subject of narcissism and the subject of mental health issues does not have to be all doom and gloom. And I'm saying this again, the subject of narcissism, the subject of mental health does not have to be all doom and gloom. Again, right in the beginning, Morana, we know and our listeners are aware, the number of negativity that we drew by many people that had lots of just negative comments about this program might have felt that this is a doom and gloom program. Why the need to discuss this? And here I'm saying this subject is not necessarily something that has to be only about doom and gloom. The positive side of it is that this program must have able to teach you, and it must be able to teach you the skills, the strategies to help you avoid and deal with problematic people, which will serve you in all areas of life. How to deal with problematic people. And problematic people could be your partners. Problematic people could be your children. Problematic people could be your parents. Problematic people could be people you interact every day with, your friends, your co-workers. It could be your community leaders, well, whoever they are. The positive side of having this program will help us and teach us the skills and the strategies to help us avoid and deal with problematic people, inshallah, which would have served us in all areas of life, including at work or with our companions or at home. It is important to know that there's always light at the end of the tunnel. It's important to know that at the end of the tunnel, there is always light. If we allow ourselves, inshallah, to see that light at the end of the tunnel. This program, inshallah, if it would have and if it will allow you to see the light and to be brave enough to put our well-being first, to be brave to put your personal well-being first, and believe that we are the beloved creation of Allah Ta'ala that deserve better than being the victims of an abusive relationship. This part, to be self-aware, to have the self-respect and the self-love that you are a beautiful creation of Allah Ta'ala, and be cognizant of this aspect, that you are a beautiful creation of Allah Ta'ala, and you deserve better than to be a victim of these abusive people, whether it's emotional, physical, whatever. Then that in itself will develop within you self-respect, self-love, and self-honor, and you need to begin to love yourself. I hope that by the end of this program, inshallah, and our discussions, most of it, if not all of it, it will help us know that the type of nafs that we possess as a starting point to make the decision to start this healing journey that we have embarked on this program of ours, inshallah. Yes,
Inshallah. Well, I just got two comments that have come in. I think Maulana addressed this towards the end. Assalamu alaikum. Excellent advice. I was in an abusive marriage for 10 years. I required khula, but he wanted me to sign all my belongings over to him if I wanted the khula. I obliged, but after that he refused to give my divorce. I know it's all natural things, but I gave it all back. He passed away after that. The thing is, the trauma I went through, I can't get over. I even went for counseling. I have turned to my Allah. I can't even get into another marriage because of the fear that I endured. And the last comment we had, Assalamu alaikum. Please advise husband verbally abuses you regarding your siblings ongoing, making it very difficult.
Yes, Maulana. So again, inshallah, as we are going on, we've come to the end of our time today. So these advices that we are giving are perhaps absolutely appropriate on both the comments or questions that have come. Strengthening your connection with Allah Ta'ala. Begin to understand why certain people act in a particular way. And begin to forgive yourself. Begin to love yourself. And inshallah, when we go along, we will talk about it. Again, begin to get involved in some positive exercises to love yourself. And I spoke about even going to some, therapy, doing some good hobbies, doing things together, getting involved in some good activities, and understand that you as a creation of Allah Ta'ala have the ability to deserve better. And you need to start with yourself, loving yourself to be a creation of Allah Ta'ala, and begin to share the good that you have within you with other people. The example of Musa alayhi salatu wassalam, when Musa alayhi salatu wassalam was, at perhaps his lowest ebb, he was, escaping from being caught by the soldiers of Fir'aun. He had no home, he had nowhere to go. And what he did, he got involved in some welfare activities by helping two sisters. And the result of that was he made dua to Allah, he got involved in some welfare activities. And the result of that is he began to involve himself in something that he had the potential to do. And the result of that was, subhanallah, absolutely beautiful and positive. So these are the things. Learn to love yourself. Know that you as a creation of Allah Ta'ala deserve better. And as a result, begin to love yourself. Begin to respect yourself. And know that you definitely do not deserve the abuse, and you deserve better. And it has to begin with yourself. Inshallah, Maulana, we will discuss the positive and various productive things that we can do to improve our lives spiritually, mentally, emotionally, and physically, so that our negative experiences can empower our spiritual lives instead of destroying them next week, inshallah.
Inshallah, Maulana, Jazakallah for that advice that we had, very important. Inshallah, we'll carry on next week, Wednesday. From myself, Muhammad Bam, from Mazir Ahmad Ragi, and from Yazdan Khan, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
The trucks have arrived and stocks are in. Yes, one day